What I appreciate of DMX is being able to use his talent to paint a picture of Earl Simmons, but he's very much aware that DMX cannot save Earl Simmons. Welcome everyone to another episode on Coffee with Kuda, and today we are paying tribute to the man known as DMX. DMX was born Earl Simmons 18th December 1970 and passed away at the age of 50. Today we are going to be touching more on the life of Earl Simmons more than the life of DMX. I find this to be more important because the life of Earl Simmons is a life of struggles, pain, and suffering. DMX became the poet, the lyricist who spoke the life of Earl Simmons. We have to understand between the lines of some of his songs where he talks about being born in a poor family, his father leaving him at the age of 7, and being taken through the group homes and being taken to a reformed school for youth who are troubled. Understanding the perspective of reformed schools from the government perspective is different to understanding this concept from the individual's perspective. Because with DMX, he tells us, group homes and institutions only prepared me for jail. So now there is something that happens in these group homes and institutions that we don't understand that actually prepare these troubled youths for jail more than it does prepare them for life. The therapeutic value behind these institutions is so little compared to the damage that happens. So in order to understand the life of Earl Simmons growing up, from the upbringing, being beaten up by his mom, food being taken away from them, being locked up in the mother's house, and also being taken to an institution which he had no choice for. This kind of pain that he felt, he described it as the hardest thing that he has ever experienced, despite everything we know of DMX so far. That life of being abandoned is all he ever known. We experience this life through the songs of DMX, and through one of the songs he says, "All I know is pain, all I feel is rain. How can I maintain with the madness in my brain?" What kind of madness? We are talking his mom beating him up so much that he never left his room and he would barely ever see his friends. The pain of being stuck in his own room, knowing that the food is stuck and locked in his mom's room. He can only eat at a certain time. The pain of being taken by his family to a place and being told you're staying here without having a say. We're talking the pain of growing up without a father. So when he says, "All I know is pain and all I feel is rain," it pains me to understand that some parents, individuals, have children when they are not ready to have children. I say this with the understanding of the pain from the people that we speak to on our show. And I say this as a word of warning to the people that are having children and are unable to then look after the children, because now we create a future of someone who is unstable, strapped with mad greed and a heart that doesn't bleed. What does that mean? Strapped with mad greed. Being strapped is walking with a gun, but his gun is the greed. So that's why the life of Earl Simmons, from the age of 7, he was committing crime, he was robbing people, and a knife was a weapon of choice. A gun was a weapon of choice. What's pushing is the mad greed, because the mother was unable to feed the kid, and now the kid is going to feed himself. And a heart that doesn't bleed, because the mother never nurtured his heart. And now we have an individual with a kid whose heart that doesn't bleed. And yet you expect that kid to function in the society. What kind of kid are you looking to bring up in the world? DMX, one of his lines, he says, "Damn, was it my fault or something that I did? for a father to leave his first kid at 7 doing my first bid. You and I may never quite fathom the pain these youths grow up in. Hearing someone saying, is it my fault that my father left me at 7 years old doing my first bid? He's talking about doing crime from such a young age. Remember, we spoke about his heart that doesn't bleed. What I appreciate of DMX is being able to use his talent to paint a picture of Earl Simmons, but he's very much aware that DMX cannot save Earl Simmons. You wanna be me? Here's what you do. Grow up neglected by both parents and still pull through. How many of us grow up loving DMX, wanting to be like DMX, and yet he warns us in these songs, to be me is to be neglected by both parents. The life that we never want for our children, that we never want for ourselves, is the kind of life that some people are going through, and yet we label them and push them out of our society, and we criminalize them. We put all these sort of labels above and above and above. Someone said, it's better and easier to raise a good child who becomes a better man than to try to fix a broken man at any time. Because the things and the people we are trying to fix, they are telling us that all we feel and all we know is pain. To make it all worse, I was watching the documentary of DMX, and you can tell the relationship between him and his son was broken. One thing he tells us in that episode is he never had a father. None of his friends ever had a father, but yet he's expected to raise this son of his. These people are not given the tools to raise children, and now we expect them to raise children. One of the reasons why I appreciated DMX so much is his ability to take his pain and suffering to teach others so they hopefully may not have to. DMX tells us himself, to live is to suffer, and to survive is to find meaning in the suffering. I don't believe at any time, anywhere, anyone should have to live through suffering. You see, to DMX, life wasn't life. It was just suffering. And he just says, for him to be able to survive, he had to find meaning in the suffering. Why did my father leave me? Why did my mom abandon me? This is life for Earl Simmons. So that's life. That's all he knows how to live. To survive, for him to continue and not take his own life away, he had to find meaning in the suffering. And that's why he continues to say, if anyone can look back on their life and know that they've changed someone's life for the better, then that life means something. And I've done that 100-fold. You see, while you feel so bad for the pain he's going through, he knows that pain has saved a lot of people's lives, and he's all right by that. There is more gratitude found in one person who suffered so much than gratitude found in millions of people who live so comfortably behind their couches, behind their TVs, with family and their loved ones. And yet they don't find meaning in their life because their life has not changed anyone for the better. In that same interview with Young, and she asked him, why don't you quit drugs? Why don't you put them away? But he asks her, why do you want me to do that? And she says, so that you can have a clear mind for God. DMX's response is, if I drop dead right now, I would have fulfilled the purpose God sent me to do. How many of us can sit back and say, I have fulfilled the purpose God sent me to do? I know Christians left, right, and center all over in my life. None I can think of can say, I have fulfilled the purpose God sent me to do. But DMX is so confident that the words he has spoken and the word he has preached has saved a lot of people coming through the situations he came through so that they may find strength and courage to pull through. He backs this up by saying, whenever I went through something, it brought me closer to God. But because I always stayed into something, I got even closer to God. Being closer to God is hard because the attacks become stronger and they last longer. The joy and the pain, the dark and the light, the sun and the rain, and that's what it's always been. With the right perspective, there's always something to gain. You have to look at the good that's in the bad. There's no better ownership of your own life than the words we hear from DMX representing Earl Simmons. A true ownership of my father, my mother, I love him, I hate him. I wish God I didn't have them, but I'm glad that he made them. My father and my mother, I love him and I hate them. The heaviness in those lyrics are so difficult to comprehend, especially when he says, I wish God I didn't have them, but I'm glad that he made them. The contradiction is so powerful. He hates the fact that these two specific people were created to bring the pain and cause the harm. But he's glad that he made them because they are the ones who gave him this life. This is a debate that goes on in his life for so long, and a debate that never ended until the day he died. Does he appreciate that they were there? Yes, he appreciates them because they gave him life. But damn, does he hate them. So the more we dig deeper and deeper, the more these certain lines by DMX tells us a picture of Earl Simmons. He says, I enjoyed the light, but I lived in the dark. From that line, what I see is DMX enjoyed the light, but he always carried Earl Simmons, who lived in the dark. And this is a life of a person who naturally tried to be good, but his own upbringing could not quite take him to that level. And that's why DMX, after he performed, he cried and he said a prayer, because while we are enjoying the performance, he can't get over the idea of, I'm only telling you my upbringing. So that goes back to the point where he says, if I drop dead today, I have done and I have completed everything God sent me to do. So I appreciate that DMX is able to tell us in his own poetic way about the battle that is going on, loving the fact that his parents are there, but hating them, enjoying the light, but knowing he constantly lives in the dark. The silence, the dark, the mind is so fragile, the wish that the streets would have took you when they had you, like boy with no feelings, the frustration, the rage, trapped inside a cage, the beatings till the age. A 12 I carried, a 12 gauge. A mind so fragile. He explains that by telling us, I wish the streets took you when they had you. Literally wishing to have died earlier. Because now he's at a point, he's making this music and he's trying to enjoy it, but he can't. DMX was introduced to cocaine at the age of 14 by an older peer in the music industry. We have constantly tried to speak about, if you don't love your kids at home, the streets will always accept them. What happens in the streets, you have zero control over. So now, instead of that parent giving up and sending him to the reformed school, he came back not even wanting to be home anymore. You have just built a monster upon the monster that you were building. And when he goes to the people who accept him, I speak from the perspective of a fan of DMX. I grew up loving the music, dancing to it. But one thing I did not understand was the life of Earl Simmons when I was younger listening to DMX. Then I go through a phase and then I try to truly understand what the lyrics in the songs mean. Then now I sit back and I say, whoa, he's talking about a child that was abandoned by a father at 7, a child abandoned by his own mother, the sisters not even reaching out to him. The only way he knew how to survive was to rob and steal from other people. A kid who knew to take what didn't belong to him because no one actually offered him anything. I'm speaking from a perspective not of DMX fan, but of someone who now understands the life of Earl Simmons. DMX was right when he said, if my life can help one person, I'm good with that. I am truly one of those people whose life he changed. I speak on behalf of a lot of people who are not saying RIP DMX, but who fully understand that today Earl Simmons is resting in peace. Thank you so much for watching and following this little tribute on the life of DMX and touching on his upbringing as Earl Simmons. I do want to emphasize heavily on anyone out there who is going through painful upbringing. I would like to encourage you that you seek help today. because we all need that support. No man is an island. I would like to encourage you guys to, wherever you are, wherever you're watching this from, find the crisis line, call them, ask for help, reach out to social workers. Even if you're 14 years old, 11 years old, that young child still needs help. I also encourage anyone in their 20s, 30s, that the pain that you went through doesn't mean you must always live with it. Get help today, seek counseling, seek therapy. If it's going to church, take a step. There is help out there. There are people willing to support. From professionals, friends to families. Do not suffer alone. Thank you for watching.